All right. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. I'm over here in Pacific time, so it's still morning for a little bit longer. We'll give folks just another minute or so to join and get situated. We are recording this so that way we can share it with people who are not able to join us today. I know it's a busy time of the year, especially if you're in agriculture. So we'll make sure we can share it with the rest of the AEA community. And just going to make sure I can see everything that's going on. If you would all please just take a moment to mute yourselves. That way we have it nice and quiet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a presentation about the Ryzosphere. There's a fun story. I'll start out by introducing me so you know who in the world I am and why we're talking to your community. And then I'd love to have the second half of the hour just be questions and discussions with the AEA community. Our whole goal here is to serve producers who are committed to biofarming and regenerative agriculture. So we want to hear what you have to say. So I'll go ahead and kick it off. I'm assuming everybody can see my screen. Somebody give me a thumbs up, just so I know. Okay, cool. All right, we're good to go. So I'm Joni Kindwall-Moore, and for those of you who don't know me, I live in northern Idaho. I've been working in regenerative supply chains and
Nope, that's
food,
it.
and food systems for
Thank you,
about
sir.
10 years. And if you guys could just take a minute to
Yep.
mute, be fantastic. And we are recording, just so everybody knows we're recording. And I'm going to take a moment to tell you about the Rhizosphere today, but first we're going to go into a little bit of history of how we came to be here.
Bingo. And there it is. The accountable the
There we
accountable century. Take care. I got to run.
go. I'm going to help do some muting here. Apparently the auto mute did not kick in. Sorry about that, guys. Great. I'm so happy to have so many people joining us today. This is fantastic. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction, let you know really what we're all about and why we're talking to Advancing Eco Agriculture, which is definitely one of the most leading edge groups of farmers in the world, in my experience. And really what problem we're trying to solve, how we're trying to solve it for producers, what solutions we're focused on, and how it affects producers, specifically. There's so much innovation out there in the world of regen ag and food systems, and I feel like it frequently fails to address the needs of producers and making sure that producers' voices are in the center of the system, so that we're creating a system that is responsive and supportive of the innovation that you've all chosen to do, which is why you're here today. So a little bit of background about me. I actually grew up on a small family farm in rural Oregon. But my dad said, hey, whatever you do, my dad and uncle, like you are not allowed to go into agriculture. They said it's a sinking ship. There's no money in it. Like go to college and go do something. So I went into the sciences, which I mean, I guess if you were looking for money, that wasn't exactly the right choice. But like I love science. I love the interaction and relationship of humans with the natural world and with natural resources, and was always really passionate about how food can be truly medicine. And that led me into a career where I ended up as a nurse in my 30s and 40s. I was a ICU and ER trauma nurse. Definitely the one place where Western medicine shines is in that situation. But unfortunately, the other 80% of what Western medicine does is completely neglect the fact that food and supply chains and in agriculture drive our health ultimately at the end of the day. So I ended up leaving the healthcare field to start a company called Snacktivist. If you're familiar with me at all, you might know me through my work at Snacktivist. And we founded a company, a food innovation company, to help create markets and innovation for crops that are considered opportunity crops. Sorghum, millet, cowpeas, quinoa, ancient wheats, triticale, even, which is not an ancient grain, but still a super climate resilient crop. Really, really focused on how do we get away from the big five? How do we get away and restore the biodiversity on our plates, which ultimately drives diversity in the field? And we know in regenerative food systems, you literally cannot have one without the other. They are mutualistic in the relationship. And To me, I had realized at an early age that our food system is truly broken. And in the trenches of the ICU, I saw it firsthand the human suffering and the economic consequences of that broken relationship that our culture has with our food system and agriculture. And in my mind, I was introduced to people like John Kemp, several years back, and I just saw like, wow, like we don't have a problem with having farmers understand what is needed to be stewards of the soil. What we have is a market disconnect. We have a market problem that keeps us all held hostage in a degenerative model. And it's time to take our food system back. So that's what I've been working on for the last 10 years, but I kept coming up to the same problem. As someone who is literally actively building supply chains, like right here, there's my friend Jason's kids. I've been working to build supply chains for his heritage wheats. There's my daughter and I out in a potato field where they're doing biological management for russet potatoes. You can eat those at Farm Aid concerts this summer, really exciting. Like we've had some really incredible wins and we've had some incredible losses, to be completely frank, because the system is not set up to facilitate supply demand harmonization and regeneration of the system. So I'm here today to tell you about where we've landed as a group of innovators and what we feel is going to unlock these supply chains and these food system business opportunities that will ultimately fuel the livelihoods of farmers who are doing this stewardship. Okay. So really like our mission and vision and values are really aligned around regenerative principles. We believe firmly that for us to move into the future, like humanity to advance into the future, we must realign the activities of food and agriculture with human health outcomes that are positive, as well as resiliency. And resiliency is both environmental and economic. We really can't focus on just one pillar. They all three have to be activated at the same time. We must empower this shift. And this is an economic shift. I love science and I love all the nuances of what happens in the field and what drives regeneration and the restoration of all the cycles. But at the end of the day, we have a massive economic problem that we're up against in food and ag. And we need to get really smart about how we navigate that. And we need to facilitate the change. I feel like there is a significant amount of support that's needed to support these market opportunities to get your crops and your animals and all of your supply chains actually into the hands of consumers. And that is where we're focused. And at the end of the day, this is a big business that is not being served. I did some math, working with USDA and with Zach Ducheneau at FSA and, a bunch of people who had done incredible research across the space. And there's a $50 billion market here that is not being served. And that is a market where I would like AEA farmers to be involved, the farmers that I work with here in the Northwest in my own backyard that are doing this incredible work, but are still just selling into commodity markets, barely breaking even. There is a huge opportunity here that we together should coordinate and mobilize to participate with and in. But here's the problem. I swear this was my life for the last 10 years. I feel like a travel agent in 1986. Like I get calls every day from farmers and purchasers alike that are like, hey, we're the largest purchaser of wheat in Canada. How do we get involved with regenerative wheat supply chains? I'm stunned. I'm thinking, you guys are the biggest purchaser of wheat. Clearly, you know more than I do, but they call me. Or else I'll have a farmer who's doing something so innovative and so incredible. And they're like, hey, so-and-so gave me your phone number. Can you help us find a market? And so all of this led me to think like, I'm the limiting reagent. And if you ever find yourself as the limiting reagent, that's a time to step back and go, uh-oh, because that means you're a linchpin that's like holding back growth. And so I love to innovate. I'm kind of a consummate innovator. And I thought, you know what? If I work all day trying to connect markets for some wheat that's stranded in a silo somewhere, it takes me all day long and it's like 50 phone calls. I go to book a plane ticket, it takes me 5 minutes because I go to Travelocity. So, how do we capture that consumerized experience of like access, visibility, instant transactions that have trust-based frameworks? Like Airbnb, that's a trust-based framework. How do we take that and we apply it to what we're doing in food and ag every day in the building of our supply chains B2B? So, I'm really focused on business to business transactions. And this shift is really a shift to like a decentralized model. If you've been following a lot of the Maha movement and RFK, and he's talking a lot about this decentralization. And that is a really key component because our food and ag sector is highly consolidated. It's literally controlled by just a handful of huge players. And that actually makes us not have a free market to participate in. That's why we're held hostage. So the minute we make that shift and we go to more of that decentralized model where we have democratized access to markets, it's going to transform the way you farm and the way we eat. And to me, this is a critical transformation that must happen today. So our solution, in my many conversations with John, John was actually one of the first people that I said, I called up John Kemp and I said, I want to create democratized access to markets. Like, how do we break this, kind of extractive model that the B2B ingredients world operates in? And it was really great to hear his feedback because he has an incredible audience of farmers who are super cutting edge. And what I realized in talking to people on the market side, talking to people like agronomists looking to work with farmers to find seeds, farmers to find processors, brands to find ingredients, distributors to find ingredients people or brands to sell to. It's all the same. We all have the same three problems, regardless of where we sit in the system. USDA, they express the same problems. Research and universities, same problems. We don't have a place to come together as a system that is agnostic. Like it's literally like, hey, we're here because we believe in a better food system, but we're all parts of different communities, maybe AEA, Understanding Ag, ROC, a local NRCS program. Like there's a lot of diversity out there, but we don't have a place to all come together to be and to really focus on problem solving for the system. So we need to connect the stakeholders. But more than that, we actually need analysis. We need like to harness some of these cool tools that technology is delivering to us today to work smarter, not harder. I mean, you're farmers, you all work really hard. We need to all work a little smarter. And so that's where smart analysis comes in. Things like well-placed AI, like I'm really leery of a lot of AI. I don't think AI will ever save the world. However, the people who are saving the world, if we leverage tools like AI, I think we can really save the world a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. So we're using these types of technology tools to help level up the work of our community so that we can meet the demands of the modern market. And then lastly, automated diligence. Everyone across the system, we have a lack of visibility. So I work with large and small companies, both. And for the longest time, I thought it was just because we were a small company that our paperwork and our sharing of critical information about our business activities and supply chains, I thought it was just us. And then I started working with big companies, like companies that are doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year in sales. And I realized they had the same problems as I did as a small player. And this automated diligence is a framework where we can communicate what we do and where we're at as far as market readiness. And we can get that done really quickly so we can do more deals. We can get better offtakes in place and we reduce the risk and the time in which we make that happen. So how do we actually do this? Oh, real quick. And who do we serve? So it's a great question. I believe that any farmer or rancher who believes that they want to do differently is who we want to do business with. It's who we want to be in the community with. I know that there's a lot of kind of turf warring out there of who's organic, who's not, who's regenerative, who's not, all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, like the people I want to surround myself with are the people who believe in stewardship and believe in context. And they believe in meeting their system that they farm in and responding to the needs of that ecosystem. And those are the producers that I like to work with best. It doesn't have to do with the label or the care plan. It has to do with the heart and how much respect and relationship they put back in to the care of their soil. And like this is Brad here. I spent the day yesterday with Brad. He's a potato farmer in Central Washington. He and his brothers, and they're just doing incredible work. Yes, they still do some tillage when they go to plant and harvest potatoes, but the rest of the time they have gone to full soil health. And the outcomes that they have demonstrated in a data-driven way are remarkable. They're literally doing what people said was impossible. And these are the types of farmers that I love to serve in my work every day. So if that's your sentiment too, and you're looking for market access, like you definitely came to the right place. So in working in the food system, this is a hot mess. Like, look at all these moving parts. Like, I get dizzy when I look at this slide, but it's because I live in it and I know how cumbersome it is. The food system brings together so many diverse people. It's actually crazy. But we need all of these people to really build a functioning modern system. And how do we coordinate all this? How do we make sense of it? And this is something that I have thought about for 10 years. And basically, where we've arrived, like I had just mentioned, is like, how do we organize? And so mapping is a miraculous thing. And there's mapping within organizations across the food sector, but we rarely have mapping that combines the different communities, that combines the different segments. We have a lot of farmer mapping, but do we have infrastructure and processing mapping? Not usually. So last year, my company Snacktivist was hired by USDA Regional Business Food Centers because they knew that we had been mapping. We'd been doing asset mapping for years. And they said, hey, look, can you advance this mapping specifically for post-harvest processing of grains, oil seeds, and pulses in a 5-state area? And so we did that. We did a mapping exercise for them. But again, what we realized is static mapping's cool. Like it actually is a heavy lifter. You can get a lot done when you can see where all your people are. But we needed to level it up. We needed to make the map intelligent. We needed to make it findable and discoverable. And that's when we said, hey, what would happen if we added a little AI to this mapping? What would happen if we made it have interrelationship mapping? And what would happen if we gave it a little chat bot? So you can log in and you can go, hey, I need to find somebody who can process organic flax in a 400-mile radius of my farm. And I need to find a distributor that wants to buy it. You put that into our little chat bot and you actually get an answer and you get mapping. And that mapping links to the person that you would need to talk to get that deal done. And that's the kind of innovation that we're focused on at the Ryzosphere. And then we pull that all into a digital community so that like you can actually create groups with people, you can talk to people, and you can kind of suss them out. Because I mean, who are we kidding? We had to be careful. I'm gonna have anybody who's not muted, if you wouldn't mind hitting your mute button.
It's the Vegan Foodie
I can
Girl.
do it on my end, but it
Today,
takes
I'm going to
forever.
show you how to make tempeh. Tempeh is often used in Japanese dishes.
I love tempeh, but we'll skip that one for today. Okay, there we go. I just muted everybody. Sorry about that. So this digital community helps you actually connect and create relationships and kind of suss out who people are. I know for me, if I'm working with a new farmer I've never worked with before, I like to see and understand what they do. Have they been on podcasts before? Have they been speakers at conferences? Have they been part of pilot research projects around that crop? You know, like really, where are they at? Are they completely new to it? That's also valuable. And we don't have any place that makes that really easy to discover. And so,
I think it's worth asking the question.
uh-oh,
Okay.
got some more talking. Okay, there we go. We muted everybody again. So when you come into the Rhizosphere, you actually kind of enter like LinkedIn a little bit or like social media, like Twitter, where you can see a feed, you can find communities, you can be part of communities, you can be part of multiple communities. So say you're like part of the AEA community, but you're also part of a regional, like bioregional community as well. But then maybe you like participate with non-GMO project, and maybe you also sell into UNFI as an ingredients director. Like you're going to have lots of communities, and that's the nature of humans. That's actually the nature of our food system. We don't operate in silos. The idea that there's an expectation that we should all gravitate to silos is fundamentally against nature. There's no biomimicry at play there. So we want to bring back that like cross communication, that intra collaborative type of ecosystem play that makes for a healthy community and a healthy system. But what's cool here is you come in and you can find your people and then you can learn about them, which is super fun. I'm a part of so many projects and I'm like, who is this person? They're so cool. They're doing all this neat stuff. But I have to like go to LinkedIn, then I have to go to their Twitter, then I have to go to their homepage. I have to go to like 5 places to actually figure out what they're doing. In the Ryzosphere, we make it really easy because you can make your profile whatever it wants. It can link to all the different things that you do. It can link to your personal website if you want. Like we want people to share their cool stuff. And we want it to be data driven. You know, we want it to actually be professional. This is more than show and tell. Show and tell is cool, but show and tell doesn't make any of us money, doesn't help us keep our farms afloat, doesn't help us keep our livelihoods going, and it doesn't help us, you know, support our kids and future generations. We want these to be like a great show and tell that actually facilitates holistic business. Because you're all going to do better, just like I'll do better if we're having better business transactions and better business relationships. And at the end of the day, that's how we'll pull market share from the degenerative model that's ruining the planet and ruining our livelihoods, right? So with these community profiles, producers will have really cool profiles because this is your chance to shine and share what you do. But processors will also have profiles, which is kind of funny because nobody ever cares about processors, but they're like literally the most important piece of the puzzle in some ways because they're the gatekeepers of the market. But we never shine a light on them. We never talk about them. My friends that have mobile processing equipment for like post-harvest handling, they don't even have websites. Like they're the only way you even know they're there is if you have their cell phone number because you got it from a buddy. You know, so how do we make sure that these resources are findable and can optimize all of our work? And in this participant dashboard for farmers, there's some really cool stuff that will help you be discoverable by market partners. And, you know, I think for farmers, this is so critical because we can make websites and websites are cool, but websites are lost in a sea of like millions and millions and millions of websites. And to drive SEO traffic, like from Google, is really expensive and quite sophisticated. I don't know very many people that really have the time or money to invest in that. So how do we create a community that we already know is looking for you? We already know they want regenerative commodities. They want better quality crops. And how do we make it really easy to do business and to discover one another? This is a totally transformational model. The other thing I want to point out, in addition to locations, is we can share events, we can host events, we can have educational things in here. We can do all kinds of stuff because this is a community-centered platform. And one last thing I do want to mention, and then we'll wrap it up here in a minute, but you know, across the last 10 years and working with both large and small companies and producers, one thing that really worries me is that as technology advances, it widens the divide between the people who can afford it and the people who can't. And I'm always very suspicious of initiatives that give an unfair advantage to people who can afford big guns, right? It's like, how do we have a more even playing field so that our community of innovators, small and large and medium, can have access to technology that makes us competitive in the market? And the way that I feel like we can solve for that is having basically community utility tools and like in a commons. So for example, if we want access to tools that are very tech oriented, like this AI mapping and stuff, we could not, as individuals or as small organizations, afford to build that. You know, again and again and again. There's a lot of redundancy, there's a lot of waste there. But if we all invest in it like a community utility, we can actually have access to very competitive tools that can make us have a more even playing field economically when we're looking to try to get contracts that are sustaining and are actually kind of pulling business from the big degenerative players. And that's something that's like a real paradigm shifter. There's a lot of examples of cool, it's, you know, co-ops have a lot of that same ethos, and you're probably familiar or part of co-ops. There's a lot we can learn from this concept of shared community utility. And one of the community utility things that makes me the most excited is the SVI, System Vitality Index. It's a framework. And this has been developing over several years in many deep conversations with some of my favorite agronomists and farmers that I have worked with for the last decade. And I'm a nurse, so in my world, everybody communicates using a cadence that is always the same. And in nursing, it is always vital signs, like blood pressure, heart rate, all of that. Labs and history and physical. You never ever start with the care plan. So why in food and agriculture do we start with the care plan and then forget to talk about the data that supports it, like your farm's vital signs? And so we've, for many, many years, we've been trying to figure out, well, how do we do this? Because we don't want this to be like something that's restrictive. How do we make it to where we give the power to producers to actually communicate exactly where they're at? Because the reality is, certain buyers, they don't care if you're like data optimized on blockchain and APIs and all that stuff. They just want to know that you are growing the best quality oats in North America and that they can buy them, right? But then the next buyer comes along and they're like, well, we actually are trying to satisfy some ESG goals for our corporate stuff. So we actually do need it to be all tech enabled. The reality is that the market and the supply should figure out what they need from each other, and we need to get out of the way. Our job is to make it as easy as possible for you to communicate where you're at and what you do. What are your vital signs? What are your labs? What's your history and physical? That's like your marketing. Like, why are you cool? Why should we do business with you? And then at the end of the day, what care plans do you participate in? Are you part of Regenerative? Are you part of ROC? Are you part of whatever it might be? That's it. Are you USDA organic? Those are care plans. And so we're creating a tool to really help unlock that communication. And we call that the SVI, this System Vitality Index framework. The last key component of the SVI is there's a market resiliency and readiness index. So like if you're a produce grower and you're already GAP certified and you already have your segregated policies and handling, you're like market ready, you're ready to go. You can communicate that to a potential buyer and they can filter to see you based on that because they're like, oh, this farmer has like really good market readiness. They could do business with us tomorrow. Like, cool, let's get that done. But then maybe you're like working to develop supply chains and you're looking for a farmer that maybe needs help. Maybe you have a grant that's going to help train them in gap analysis certification. You would be looking for farmers that don't have that. And that's why it's so important for us to understand and be able to filter and find based on our needs. So business model, how do we pay for this whole thing? Because there's a lot of tech here that we're going to build and there's a lot of community support services. I don't ever want to stand in the way of people meeting each other and doing business. So that was one thing that on day one, I was like, we cannot build a solution that makes everybody a slave to our system. Like that's never going to work. That's in conflict with our ethos. So we've come up with a lot of different ways to kind of monetize this so that way people can engage with this platform in the way that works best for them. We are definitely leaning into more of that abundance model. Like if you get people together, there's a lot of great ways that they can engage that's not going to just be extractive all the time. So we will have community access that's membership driven, but we will always have a freemium because not everybody wants AI mapping. Not everybody needs AI mapping. Maybe they just want to be part of community groups and events. That's great. That's cool. So we'll always have professional membership. We'll have freemium membership. We'll have paid access to technology tools. If you don't want technology tools, you don't have to buy them. Like, that's fine. We want to meet you where you're at. And I think that that's far more powerful from a business model than anything else. We will have some intra-platform targeted advertising because, if you just made a really cool, product for soil health, there's no point in marketing that to somebody who's a buyer at Whole Foods. Like they don't care. However, it might be something you're looking for. So we will have some targeted advertising within the platform that's tasteful and appropriate to your needs. Eventually, we would like to get into data licensing and data subnetting. There is so much data that you all do every day, and chances are you're not getting paid for it. And my belief in the long run is that if we mobilize our communities and we're like, look, this is our data, and if we want to license it, we have the right to license it. There's a lot of really cool momentum that can happen there, but we have to have a data sovereignty framework in place first. So we will eventually offer data licensing as part of our monetization model, but it won't be like this year. But I just like to talk about it up front so you know how I feel about it. And for those of you who want to do trade within the platform, we will have trade tech and tools, so you'll be able to transact right there. We have an amazing team. I love the folks that have come on board. John has been a really incredible advisor through this process for the last few years. So I don't have him on the board, but he and Kish have been really instrumental in a lot of my thinking about this. So thanks to both of them. But just really incredible team that's coming together to marry this spirit of regeneration and market innovation with, 21st century tools so we can get it done smarter. And so if this is something interesting to you, we're in our pre-build. We are not live yet. Our goal is to have our platform open for our early adopter groups to join like by August, September. So that way going into the fall, our producers can come on board and spend the winter getting involved and getting familiar. We are a startup, so we're just getting this launched. But we are bringing in farmers from across the country right now, incredible farmers. And when we start to understand not only where our farmers are, but we start to understand what are our farmers up against? What crops do our farmers need to grow to advance the regeneration of their soil? What are the barriers? What do they have? What commodities have they been growing that are stuck? We start to understand how to actually move this market and solve for problems. And that way, when these, larger partners come to us and they're like, hey, how do we get involved with regeneration? We actually can have a data-driven response for them. We can say, you know what, based on our farmer segment in Eastern Washington, we see that there's a huge need to commercialize flax, for example, because we grow a lot of garbs. And if we can have flax, we reduce the need of fungicides. That is a data-driven hypothesis that just needs a market solution. These are the kinds of things that we're trying to solve with the Ryzosphere. So this is our farm survey. Should you want to take it, it's like a Google form. It is like 15 minutes of your time. And we actually have some really fun prizes because we like prizes. Who doesn't love prizes? And so Lisa Stokey, who's probably here, had an incredible idea to put together a prize bundle. So we've got some fun prize bundles, of course, AEA being one of them. But we also have a Regenerate Colorado gift box. We have a Regenerative Edibles box from the Inland Northwest. So kind of fun. We'll be announcing those going into actually July probably. And I can go back to that. And then, we often hear like, hey, I want to tell my buddy about this. So we do have a code if you want to tell your friends as well. And I will share the link to this presentation with you in the chat. So that way you can have access to these codes. But I firmly believe at this point, guys, like we can fight the old model all we want, but after 10 years and a lot of scar tissue, I think we just need to build our own model. I think we just need to build our own world and take back our food system and just start doing the work that we know needs to be done. And yeah, I'm excited to hear your questions. So sorry, I went a little bit over my half-hour goal, but I get excited and I start talking and I apologize. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your questions. There's a lot of you out there. So if you want to use the little raising hand feature, that'd be great. And also, or you can put a question in the chat. I've got a couple of team members, Lee and Finian. You might know Finian Makepeace from his work at Kiss the Ground. He's part of our team as well. We'll all keep an eye on the chat and we can take the next half hour to answer your questions. So thank you. I'll just give you a minute to see who wants to pop in first. And thank you, Tiffany. I see your message. Thank you. I'm glad you're excited that we're doing this. It's nice to see you. All right. Any other questions? This is a big crew, guys. Don't be shy. You can direct message it to me or Finian or Lee Fonseca if you're shy and you want it to be an anonymous one. Thank you, Pike. And how about if you don't have exact questions, if you want to hear anything more, or Finian and Lee, if you would like to chime in on anything that I missed when I excitedly went through this presentation. And while you're doing that, I'm going to put the link to it in the chat. I just had to look at my other screen for a second. Sorry about that. And I see a comment from Madhusan. There is some interesting innovation in India having to do with market democratization. In fact, it's been super inspiring with our work at North American Millets Alliance. Like we've had some awesome opportunities to work with Indian innovators. And wow, I mean, talk about disruptive market access stuff. India's really got some stuff that we need to learn from. Tiffany, I see your hand up.
Hi. So Joni, when you get all these responses and you're putting it all together,
Yeah.
when is your first dry run? When do you propose? Is it months from now? Is it, you'll kind of take it as this happens and, some things just get integrated?
Well, what's cool is that right now with our farming response, we're actually actively connecting market opportunities just in the background, even though Ryzosphere is not formally live. Like I just moved 700,000 pounds of regenerative wheat into a really cool offtake at a premium, which I was super excited about because I was able to see, and because I'm in the middle, I'm kind of an integrator. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna forward these specs along, and what do you know? We had a great contract.
Connection. That's
Yeah.
great.
And
That's
so,
awesome.
but unfortunately, that's not digitized. That's still working like a travel agent in 1986 style.
Okay.
But we're hoping to have the digital model, the
Mhm.
digital side of this, just for our early adopters live going into like August. And
Oh,
so that
fantastic.
way, yeah, like August, September-ish.
Okay.
And it won't be open to just anybody. It'll be like our early adopter communities, like AEA
Okay.
is obviously like a super near and dear to our heart early adopter community.
Mhm.
So we'll start with our pioneers and
Right.
our friendlies, because we know when we get it first operational,
Mhm.
it may be a little bit glitchy those first few weeks, like while we make sure it's meeting the needs. So and then as we go into the next year, like 2026,
Mhm.
that's when we're going to come out and be more like public facing. However, we'll always be an invite only or like application only. Like even if you invite somebody, you'll still have to apply, because we don't, you can't 100% eliminate bad actors, but you can
Mhm.
definitely be more discerning. And we want to make sure that it's truly food systems folks. Like we don't want just the voyeurs in here. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
if you're truly in the food system, even if you're like at a NRCS lab somewhere, or you're a farmer, or you're like a buyer at a store, like those are all food system people, but we will actually vet and validate that they are indeed who they are. Like, okay, cool. You have a LinkedIn profile that matches what you're describing here. Or, oh, you did a seminar at a conference. You are actually a farmer, that's doing this. So we do want to have some quality control there.
So what happens, like what type of intake forms do you accept them to vet your producers that are part of your community? For
Yeah.
example, like if people have global gap certification, like you had mentioned during your presentation,
Yeah.
or regen verified, or organic, that those are things that your team then would scan in and just say, yes, check, 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 check.
Yeah, and then you'll be discoverable on the platform based on those
Okay.
attributes. So, for example,
Mhm.
if you are listed as, you're like, yes, I have global gap, that came into the spreadsheet as one of your attributes. Like
Mhm.
now, like the intelligence of the platform can like actually map you as that. So if somebody's
Mhm.
like, I need someone who grows cherries and their global gap and da da da
Mhm.
da da, like suddenly you come up on that list of
Mhm.
people that would hit that criteria.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope that
I
answers the
think one of
question.
the hurdles for some farmers, small, maybe to mid farmers, is whether or not to keep that certification, because usually
Yeah.
that is specifically for a large distributor.
Institutional. Yeah.
And so, I think, just even finding out from other individuals, like, are people going to let that part go, knowing that, an organization like you is vetting us? I mean, you
Well,
should still be doing those things of Global
yeah.
Gap anyways, because there's safety,
Yeah. And
everything.
you don't have to have it. Like literally you can be listed as you do all the things, but you're not gap. And that's fine too, because there are people that are like, "Hey, I'm just looking for the best cherries." Like I don't care
Mhm.
if they're gap certified, because I have my own vetting criteria, because I own
Mhm.
a chain of restaurants in Montana. Do you know what I mean? And so
Perfect.
the thing about this is we're not establishing the bias. We're actually just making it
Right.
really easy to communicate what you do.
Okay.
You know, because depending on who the buyer is, like we're working with
Mhm.
Slow Food USA really closely. They work with chefs. The
Mhm.
chefs are most concerned with quality and story.
Mhm.
They're less concerned with gap. They're less
Mhm.
concerned with certifications. They
Mhm.
just want to know, they want to know who you are and they want to know
Right.
that the quality is impeccable. And so that's what's so interesting. I've never found any place in the market that allows us to vet on individual needs. We always come in with this biased position of like, oh, you have to be
Mhm.
this and you have to be that.
Mhm.
I'm like, let the market decide what it wants because depending on where you are in the market, it's going to be different.
Thank you.
Yep. Mm. Anybody else? Oh, I see some questions. Let me go through there. Yeah, 100%. Functionally. So, David, I'm answering your question. Yes, our goal is to connect bioregional growers and consumers with one another. Because I've built a brand and sold coast to coast, like in a CPG model, and I've talked to buyers around the country, and they're just like, we wish we could have more bioregional sourcing, but we literally have no visibility into it other than going to like Facebook, Marketplace, Craigslist, or like Nicholsworth. I mean, it's crazy. So it's when you look at being able to filter by bioregion, and this is why Cisco's a big guy, but they said, "Oh my goodness, like we're in." Like because we have 240 distribution centers across the country. Every distribution center has local procurement buyers, and they literally go to Facebook and like Craigslist to find people. And so when Cisco vetted this, they said this will 10x our bioregional sourcing programs. So again, just making it easy to discover, easy to filter, and then easy to transact. Like really, our goal is we want to realign bioregional sourcing by de-risking access to the community that can provide it. Yeah, that's a great question, David. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, I will also share the recorded meeting with the AEA team and they can share it out with everybody. So that way, if you want to watch it again, glutton for punishment, but share it with your friends or colleagues. Definitely. And yeah, I love hazelnuts. I grew up in Oregon, so filberts are near and dear to my heart. And my uncle and my cousins all grow hazelnuts. And yeah, access to producers and markets. Yeah, not having the outlets to justify the risk in the current tight margin environment. Exactly. And this is where by creating an environment where people can self-organize and we can create aggregations digitally, we can start to actually rethink the way producers and vertically integrated models come together because now we're creating a commons, a place where we can come together. And because we'll actually have a financial community also built into the Ryzosphere, we've been having fantastic conversations with Stewart and Zach Ducheneau, who is at FSA, and other people that are doing really deep financial innovation so that there's more products. Even
You guys,
hey,
hey,
oh hey Holly, I can hear you now.
sorry. I'm sorry, I must have unmuted myself.
Well, hey, I was super excited about your enthusiasm, so don't even be sorry.
Yelling at my cat. Let me mute myself.
Yeah, you're totally good. So, that's the whole thing is like, the other day we have a really cool group of farmers I represent in the market they have an opportunity to come together. They're going to form an LLC and they're going to vertically integrate because they want a holding facility specifically for regenerative segregated commodities from dryland areas in the Northwest here. And so, but they were like, oh my gosh, we talked to our local credit union lender and they were like, we don't do that kind of thing. So they didn't know where to go. They called me here once again. I'm the integrator. I fired off 9 introductory emails and boom, they had meetings the next week for potential funding to buy this facility. And so again, it's a lack of connectivity that holds us back because those lenders are out there. I know them. I just only know them because I work in a weird space. The farmers, none of them knew these guys. So it was incredible. Like we were going to digitize that experience. So yeah. infrastructure investment, I tell you, it's a big deal. Lee and Finian, am I missing some other good questions?
I've been trying to jump in and ask questions in the chat, but I think it's a great time to just check with those of you who have been asking questions in the chat. Did I miss any that you want to drop in again, or just come off mute and ask Joni?
Yeah. And Jackie, yes, co-ops, infra, private grocery. Yeah. They're all participants in the system. They need to be visible and have visibility. I'm looking through the questions as well. Oh, yeah. Brandon, cool question. So for those of us just starting out in food production, can the platform help give us advice on how to structure and plan our businesses to best match the regenerative Ryzosphere ecosystem? Speaking from a small ranch and orchard in Northern California. So that's a really important part because we will not be specifically giving advice. We're taking a very agnostic position in the system. We are facilitators, we're connective tissue. However, by having all of this information together, it makes feasibility studies and strategic planning for market access so much easier because you can start to see like, okay, I'm a small ranch and orchard in Northern California. I would like to plant more X. But where is my nearest processing? Where's my nearest distribution access, etc.? Like I have a James Johnson who may be here. Awesome. I love him. Down in New Mexico, he has pistachios and pecans under regenerative management. I have a innovator friend who has a nut company and he's been wanting to hit those regenerative pistachios, but we just haven't figured out how to map that value chain. We haven't found a desheller who's willing to do that. So by having the mapping, and this is what we'll work on here in the next few months, is having that more robust mapping. It can help you strategize and kind of, it doesn't provide advice, but you can start to actually have the materials and the data you need. So when you do find an advisor or a business strategist or a consultant, you're not working against like a blind set of reality. Data marks. Like, I mean, most of us make decisions really not understanding what's out there. We kind of operate in an opaque system. So, but to be clear, we're agnostic. We're literally providing the connective tissue. So like the rhizosphere in nature, if it's healthy, great life will sprout from it. But you never really see the rhizosphere. It's invisible. You know it's there, but it's not the star of the show. Everyone in the system is the star of the show. I do have connections to Zach Bush, David, and Farmer's Footprint. Yeah, so I actually need to sit down and talk to him. And a lot of that Farmer's Footprint, David Leon has been involved with a lot of the thinking through this for a long time. And those guys, even though he's no longer part of the project, but they're really doing some innovative thought leadership there. It's a good question. And we're also talking to Callie Means and the RFK Maha camp as well, because they're really focused on decentralized, democratized access for innovation. And, as we're eliminating chemicals from our food, what is our backup plan? We don't have any visibility into the system. So having visibility into the system will help us align business decision-making with those new goals that are coming from a top-down regulatory approach. I just threw a lot of information at you. Jackie, you're surrounded by computers. And I'm sorry, I can't see all of you in my screen. So, in fact, maybe I'll stop sharing just so I can see you better. There we go. Makes it more fun. Yeah. Any last questions?
I just want to say thank you for your presentation. You're doing a great job. You did throw a lot out there, so it's a lot to think about because so it's kind of like this. I have this knee-jerk reaction of just sort of wait and see because it's like this toy that has 50 different components and you really don't know where to jump in. I did put a question on there because I'm a small farmer, I'm a small market farmer, and mostly I'm trying to connect with local community.
Yeah.
I can see it from my perspective from, you know, I've always wanted to find, say, a chicken food person who's regenerative or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
those kind of purchases for myself. So I don't
Yeah.
really see how it will integrate more buyers for me necessarily because I'm small at this point. And it feels like
Yeah.
it feels like this is very commodities, large purchases driven. Maybe that's
Yeah.
not correct, but
Yeah.
I like what you're doing.
Good observation, Bobby. Yeah, thank you so much. And right now, definitely we're really focused on mid-sized, you know, so like because we're not connecting to the end consumer, we're literally a business to business transaction platform. It, you know, because we kind of had to like, you know, put the limits on it somewhere, otherwise it's just too vast and too crazy. And, you know, so we definitely have like our key focus point are like those small to medium, that medium kind of footprint. So not the biggest of the big, not the smallest of the small, but people who are wanting to sell into other businesses, like even to restaurants and local co-ops and stuff like that, because that's a B2B transaction. We're definitely not getting involved with like direct to consumer. If people do that, I mean, a lot of the farmers I work with do direct to consumer. They have websites and they sell, and that's fantastic. But they all are like, hey, can you help us anchor the other 60% into an offtake market that will stabilize us so we can get a bank loan? Because otherwise it's like really hard to bank when it's all D2C driven. And so we're like, oh, okay, we've heard loud and clear from so many of our producers that they need that stabilization force of the B2B transactions. So, but it is a big picture thing. So I hope I didn't snow you guys with details, but you know, really key takeaway at the end of the day, we need a place to come together. And we should use the intelligence that the 21st century brings us and other industries are already using to be more efficient. And then let's have some tools that help us eliminate risk in our business transactions with each other. Yeah. Thank you, Bobby. That was a great question. You make me want to go to the beach, but that's okay. I'm in Idaho. It's a little ways away.
I miss the beach. I live in Oklahoma now, and I really like it here. But I used to live in Hawaii, and I miss the beach. So I saw that
yeah.
and went, "Oh, good! I can watch the beach while we're
doing
it's the
really
presentation."
Lovely. I'm enjoying it. All right.
Jenny, we have a question about Canada, and I know Canada has come up in our discussions before.
Yes. Yes. And quite frankly, I have a real thing about artificial boundaries because bioregions transcend state and national borders. And so while right now we're really kind of focused on like our own backyard, anything like Canada is definitely, we already have Canadian farmers that have filled out the farmer intake survey. And so because we're using some technology tools that allow us to actually do business in other countries, that will be forthcoming. But like to, you know, like our August, September launch will be more US focused, but I suspect that we'll quickly be pulling in our Canadian partners very, very quickly. I mean, some of our anchor customers are Canadian based already. So on the purchasing side. Good question. Yeah. Yeah, Derek Axton was actually one of the first farmers that signed on, and he's Canadian. So you probably know Derek and Tanis, I'm guessing. They're pretty incredible folks. Yeah. Yeah, the presentation link there, Wilson. Yeah, there's a link there, and that goes to a web presentation that can be viewed. So yeah, and that can be shared. If you want to share that with your colleagues, please feel free. All right. Am I missing anything else? I'm just looking through the comments here. See if I missed anything. Finian, do you have anything to add, or did Finian have to jump off?
He had to jump off.
Okay, he might have had to go. Lee, any final thoughts?
Just super excited. Sorry, my cat is photobombing. Super excited that we're, moving forward with this, and really hope that some of the folks on this call will join us on this journey, and that it will help, especially, the comments that came up for those of you who are looking to transition or you're in that process. Like, this is really designed to help you see and find the markets to be able to make that possible. Which is, the thing I think, farmers want to do the right thing and they want to do good things. But you need to, and since I became a farmer myself, need to make a living wage. And need to be able to do things like take a vacation. And that means that we need access to markets that enable us to do what we know is the right work to do in the first place. So I'm super excited for this. I hope you all will join us.
Yeah, thank you. Well, awesome. I'll just leave it open for the next few minutes, and I will just be quiet for a minute. So anybody who's shy and waiting for a nice silence, please let it be your chance to jump in.
Hey, Joni, can we drop the link in the chat one more time?
Oh yeah, 100%. There we go. Oh, let me make sure it's going to everybody. There we go. Okay, yep, there it is. Sorry, it's a lengthy one. I thought I had a shortened version, but when we share this out, I think that the team at AEA will also share the recorded presentation and a link to the actual deck, and it will be a nice, tidy, short link. Sorry about that lengthy one.
We should include also a link to the survey for anyone who would
Yeah.
like to. I know some people, I think I saw someone on their phone in their combine. So
Yeah.
that's pretty hard to fill out the Google survey from
Yeah,
there.
it's seeding season, so got to ride around on the cedar yesterday. It was really fun, but it's amazing what like the dexterity of like running equipment and attending webinars requires. It's always pretty cool.
I have another question if you have
Yeah.
a second.
Yeah, far away.
What will be your criteria if you want to just hang out and say, for instance, I want to find, last year I couldn't find straw that wasn't sprayed with pesticides or herbicides. What is your cutoff? Say I'm a small farm and I'm doing an acre or less. Am I disqualified?
No.
Because what is your criteria for membership? Do you have to have a certain amount of production, level of production, size of farm, anything like that? Okay.
No.
Good to know.
Yeah, no, not at all, because the access to community support and education is also going to be there. So, it's like for producers, again, like we're, as long as you're doing your best to advance your practice in context to where you farm, like we're not setting limits on like how big or how small you are. I mean, like yesterday I was on a 12,000 acre farm. It's pretty big for irrigated out here. So, it's like everybody has a different role they play in the system. And so again, like we can't be using a biomimicry approach of like mimicking the way nature works without actually having it be kind of a wide breadth of criteria of people to opt in. But obviously like honesty and integrity and presenting what you do with authenticity, those are the things that we're more concerned about, because like some of the best farmers I know, I mean, they're so not perfect, but their earnest yearning to do better every year and to compete against themselves is what makes them so incredible. And those are the people we want to elevate in the system. So progress over perfection, as long as it's with integrity. Yeah, I'm finding animal feed. We'll have a whole animal feed section, because especially with a lot of work with opportunity crops like millet, even like for mushroom substrate or like animal feed. I mean, right now I'm trying to move a few million pounds of potatoes that didn't have the right environment in the tunnel, so they're going to cattle, but we want them to go to a cattle that's being marketed for something that's higher quality. You know what I mean? So again, I'm having to do it all manually. There's not any way to like filter for that, which is frustrating. So yeah, All are needed. That's one of the things I'm so excited about with like the slow food organization and like some of these ones that are really embracing culinary, like food service. A lot of people who work in food service, there's been some incredible surveys done where they want to participate in bioregional supply chains, but they literally lack the access to like make it happen. They like if they find people, it's really difficult to transact. And so again, like by kind of having almost like a food hub type concept in there where you can find your local people and then we can make it really easy to purchase it. My hope is that we can create stronger bioregional economies where you can actually go to a local restaurant and eat things that were grown in your local area. Yeah. Which is remarkably rare in this day and age. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, you guys. We ate up that hour really fast. I get so excited. It just whizzes by on my end. But please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm actually going to put my direct email in here and also the team email. And we're happy to connect and talk to you and share materials, etc. So just consider us available. I mean, we're here to serve you. This is why we're doing it. So don't be shy. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thank you.
See ya.